Dream of the Red Chamber, Chapter 81.
Even though this text was written centuries ago in Qing Dynasty China, the feeling of desperately wanting to save someone you love, only to be told by the adults in the room that, well, that's just how the world works. I mean, that hits incredibly close to home.
It really does. It is this profound loss of innocence. You go from believing that good intentions can fix anything to realizing that structural systems often just crush those intentions without a second thought.
Yeah, they really do.
And the central conflict in this specific snapshot from the novel perfectly captures that tension. So on one side, we have our protagonist, a youth named Baoyu, and his defining trait is this profound empathy and his reverence for the young women in his life.
Right, he's very sensitive.
Extremely. And on the other side, we have his aunt, Lady Wang. And in this scene, she kind of becomes the reluctant mouthpiece for the rigid, fatalistic, patriarchal structures of their society.
Okay, so let's get into the actual scene because it opens with a really heavy situation. Baoyu's cousin, Yingchun, is trapped.
Yeah, she's in a terrible spot.
She has been married off to this incredibly abusive man named Sun. And she has briefly returned to her family's massive estate. And the adult reactions here are just, they are incredibly telling.
They really show you the different survival mechanisms people use.
Right. So her stepmother, Lady Xing, plays the role of the totally indifferent bystander, just acting like absolutely nothing is wrong.
Which is chilling in its own way.
It is. But then her aunt, Lady Wang, is privately weeping in her room. Like she actually understands the tragedy of what's happening to Yingchun.
She feels it, yeah.
And that is when Baoyu walks in, sees those tears, and instantly does what, literally any idealistic kid would do. He tries to fix it with a rescue plan.
A rescue plan that is born entirely out of love, but shielded by just intense naivety.
Total naivety.
He assumes that because his family has vast wealth, and because the family matriarch grandmother Jia has ultimate authority within their own household compound, they can just, opt out of the broader societal structure.
Yeah, he literally says to Lady Wang, let's just tell grandmother Jia, and we'll bring Yingchun back to live in her old room. We'll eat together and play together like the old days.
Like nothing ever changed.
Exactly. And he says when her husband comes to get her, we'll just lock the door and refuse to let him take her. We'll just tell him it's grandmother's orders.
It's so sweet, but so deeply misguided.
Right. When I read this, I immediately thought of it as a kid trying to apply treehouse rules to the real world. You know what I mean?
Treehouse rules, I love that.
Yeah, like, no boys allowed, we pull up the rope ladder, you can't come in. He is literally trying to use the logic of a childhood clubhouse to defeat a complex, legally binding marriage system.
And what's fascinating here is how clearly this highlights the absolute powerlessness of women in this era. Lady Wang shuts his treehouse logic down immediately.
Immediately. She doesn't even entertain it.
No, and she doesn't do it by citing specific laws, right?
Mm-hmm.
She uses cultural proverbs that carry the weight of absolute law. She tells him that a married daughter is spilled water.
Man, that is such a visceral image. Spilled water. Like you physically cannot gather it back up into the cup.
You can't.
But let's clarify for everyone why that carries so much weight. Why is a married daughter considered spilled water in this specific context?
Well, you have to understand that in Qing Dynasty China, marriage wasn't just a romantic union of two individuals.
Right.
It was a strict economic and legal transfer. A woman was legally erased from her birth family's ancestral ledger and written into her husband's.
Wow, literally erased.
Literally. So her birth family essentially had zero legal standing to intervene in her new household, even in cases of severe abuse.
That is terrifying.
That is why the proverb is so terrifying. Once the water is spilled from the vessel of the birth family, they cannot legally reclaim it, and she follows it up with another famous proverb.
Oh, right, the chicken one.
Yes.
Yes.
Marry a chicken, follow a chicken, marry a dog, follow a dog.
Which is just brutal.
The implication is absolute. Yingchun must submit to her fate. Lady Wang tells Baoyu that maybe, if Yingchun has children, her husband will eventually calm down. But until then, it's completely out of their hands.
But wait, I have to challenge this framing a little bit.
Okay, go for it.
Because Lady Wang sounds kind of like a monster here. I mean, she sees this kid crying over his horribly abused cousin and basically tells him, tough luck, she spilled water, go away.
It does come across that way, yeah.
She calls him silly. She tells him he's speaking nonsense. It just feels like she is entirely brainwashed by the patriarchy and lacks any real empathy for him or Yingchun.
Well, It is super easy to read her that way from a modern perspective, but let's look at the actual survival mechanics of their society. This raises a really important question about how adults enforce norms to protect their dependents.
Okay, protect them how?
Well, notice that Lady Wang explicitly forbids Baoyu from mentioning a single word of his rescue plan to grandmother Jia. She says, I know about this, and I will not permit it.
Right, she shuts it down hard.
It is grim pragmatism. Remember, Lady Wang was just weeping for Ying Chun a minute ago. She feels the agony of the situation. But she is choosing systemic survival over emotional idealism.
So you're saying she is kind of enforcing the harsh boundary of their reality so Baoyu doesn't accidentally, like, blow up their entire social standing?
Precisely. Think about it. If Baoyu goes to the matriarch and attempts to illegally harbor a married woman, he is rebelling against the foundational rules of their entire society.
Oh, I see.
The backlash wouldn't just hurt Ying Chen, it could bring absolute ruin to the entire family. So Lady Wang is being cruel to be kind.
Oh, wow.
She is forcing Baoyu to accept his powerlessness so he doesn't destroy himself fighting an unwinnable war.
Man, that is heavy. And because Baoyu's treehouse rescue plan is utterly crushed, his physical avenues for action are just gone.
Completely gone.
He is explicitly silenced. The text notes he leaves the room listless, and he's basically forced to swallow his stifled frustration. But that heavy, suffocating emotional burden, I mean, it has to go somewhere, right?
It implodes inward.
Exactly. So he seeks out the only other person in this massive compound who actually speaks his emotional language. He runs straight to his cousin Dayu.
Yeah, he runs over to her residence, the Shixing Pavilion, and he just skips all the formalities. He walks in, puts his head on her table, and just bursts into tears.
It's a total breaking point.
It really is a profound breaking point for him.
And when Dayu finally asks him what's wrong, Baoyu utters a sentiment that is shockingly dark for him. He says, I only think it's better if we all die early. Living is truly pointless.
Which is a huge shift in his worldview.
Huge. And then he starts mourning the loss of their past. He specifically names the fading of their Begonia Poetry Club. He mentions that another cousin, Bao Chai, has gone home, and that a maid named Xiangling isn't around anymore.
He's noticing all the absences.
Yeah, he looks at their beautiful garden, which used to be this perfect, isolated utopia for them, and he realizes it is irrevocably changing.
Right, he says if we wait a few more years, who knows what it will be like. This is the realization that time is moving forward, and time is the enemy of their sanctuary. The garden was this suspended reality where they could just be children, and now time is forcing them out.
Well, here's where it gets really interesting. Because a cynical reader might look at this and think, Bao Yu is being incredibly selfish.
Selfish how?
Well, his cousin Yingshen is literally being abused, and he's crying because his childhood playgroup is breaking up. Like, is he just whining about losing his poetry club, or is this a deeper, almost prophetic mourning for the women he cares about?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it is definitely a prophetic mourning. We have to really understand what the Begonia Poetry Club represented in this context.
Okay.
It wasn't just a playgroup. Within the confines of the garden, that club was a rare, fleeting micro-society where these young women were judged on their intellect.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, their wit, their creativity. They weren't being judged on their obedience or their marriage ability.
Right. The things the outside world values.
Exactly. So the dissolution of that club really represents the end of female autonomy. Bayou's grief is this profound recognition of impermanence.
So he is realizing that adulthood for these women means leaving the garden and entering the exact same system of suffering that just swallowed Ying Chun.
Yes. He realizes he cannot save Ying Chen, which means he cannot save Dayu or Bao Chai or literally any of them. The utopia is failing, and the system is just waiting to devour them all.
That is heartbreaking. And Dayu's reaction to this realization is haunting.
It's so subtle, but so powerful.
She doesn't argue with him. She doesn't offer, empty platitudes about how things will get better. The text says she gradually lowers her head, slowly retreats to her bed, doesn't say a single word, sighs, and just lies down.
Yeah.
That physical withdrawal, the gravity of his words just physically crushes her. She knows he's right.
It is a shared, completely silent despair. They are entirely aligned in their powerlessness. But the narrative doesn't let them sit in that shared grief for very long.
No, it doesn't.
The very next moment, Zirin walks into the room.
And the second someone else enters, the masks slam right back into place.
Instantly.
Jiren sees Dayu's eyes are red from crying, and Dayu immediately lies. She says, oh, my eyes were just itchy. I was rubbing them.
Classic deflection.
Yeah, and Baoyu immediately makes up an excuse to leave and go check on his grandmother. They bury the pain instantly. But why do they hide this from Jiren? She's a trusted maid, isn't she?
She is trusted, but Jiren represents the conventional world. She is practical, she is dutiful, and she is entirely embedded in the societal system.
Okay, so she wouldn't get it.
Exactly. Baoyu and Dayu know that if they tried to explain this kind of existential, systemic grief to her, she literally wouldn't possess the framework to understand it.
Right.
To Jiren, marriage is just what happens. Complaining about the natural order of the world would seem completely absurd to her. So they have to swallow their grief, just like Baoyu had to swallow his frustration with Lady Wang earlier.
Which just isolates Baoyu even further. He leaves Dayu, he goes back to his own room, takes a nap, and wakes up feeling totally hollow.
He's emotionally exhausted.
Yeah. The shared interpersonal grief has failed to provide any real relief, so the narrative shifts. Baoyu needs to process this existential dread, so he turns to literature.
As one does.
Right. He has Siren serve him tea, and he starts flipping through ancient texts.
And the texts he chooses are not random. He opens the old Yufu poetry collection, and his eyes fall on a really famous line by the warlord and poet Cao Mengde, better known as Cao Cao.
Okay.
And the line reads, "Sing while drinking, for how long is one's life?"
And the text notes that this line physically pierces his heart. It stings him. It's a bit like a modern-day crisis of faith, honestly.
Well, it is, yeah.
When the system you believe in fails you, you don't just idly scroll for distractions. You go looking for the journals of other people who survived the apocalypse.
That's a great way to put it. He's doom-scrolling through antiquity.
He is totally doom-scrolling. He is looking at ancient history for validation. But why does a poem by Cao Cao, of all people, hurt him so much in this exact moment?
The contrast between the two figures is the key here. Cao Cao was a man of immense power. He was a ruthless conqueror from the Three Kingdoms period who commanded vast armies and literally shaped history.
So a guy with ultimate control.
Right. Yet even this warlord, who held life and death in his hands, was consumed by the fleeting, tragic brevity of existence.
Wow.
So Baoyu is using this history to contextualize his very immediate trauma. He's essentially thinking, well, if a warlord with all the power in the world felt that life was as brief as the morning dew, then what hope do I have?
What hope does a powerless kid have?
Exactly. A powerless youth trying to hold on to a fleeting garden utopia. He is seeking historical proof that his despair is justified.
It's the ultimate confirmation that he is doomed.
Yeah.
And he doesn't stop there.
Yeah.
He puts down the poetry, picks up a Jin Dynasty text, reads a few pages, and just slams the book shut.
He's just so frustrated.
He rests his chin in his hand and mutters this amazing line. He says, "What a great wandering beyond the physical realm."
That phrase, wandering beyond the physical realm, it represents the climax of his internal journey here.
How so?
It is a Taoist concept of extreme detachment. We really have to understand how Taoism functions structurally in this society.
Okay, lay it out for us.
They live in a strict Confucian world. It's hierarchical, it's rule-bound, where obedience to family and state is paramount.
Right.
But when that Confucian structure becomes too oppressive, Taoism offers a back door. It's an escape valve.
How does that actually work for Baoyu in this moment, like mechanically speaking?
Well, Taoism teaches that the physical world, with all its rigid social rules and suffering, is ultimately an illusion or a distraction from the natural way of things.
Okay.
Baoyu has run out of physical options. His treehouse rescue plan was crushed by Lady Wang's pragmatism.
Yeah, that's God.
His attempt at shared emotional mourning with Dayu had to be hidden the second convention walked into the room.
Masked instantly.
Right. So the physical reality of the patriarchal world is proving just too unyielding to bear. So he concludes that the only possible escape is to basically anesthetize himself.
Wow.
By wandering beyond the physical realm, he is intellectually detaching. If you cannot change the physical world, you must abandon it mentally to survive.
It's a psychological defense mechanism. He is choosing to check out of reality because staying present in reality means watching the women he loves get destroyed.
Exactly.
But the tragedy is he is entirely alone in this realization. Jiren, the conventional maid, is standing right there, and she is totally oblivious to this profound philosophical crisis unfolding right in front of her.
She has no idea.
She looks at him, puzzled by his brooding, and offers the most mundane advice imaginable. She basically says, well, if you don't like reading, why don't you go take a walk in the garden? Don't make yourself sick.
It perfectly encapsulates his total intellectual isolation. She means well. She really does.
She does.
But telling Baoyu to take a walk in the garden, when he has just spent the entire afternoon realizing the garden is a doomed temporary illusion, is agonizingly ironic.
It's almost cruel without meaning to be.
Yeah. The garden isn't a refuge anymore, it's a waiting room for tragedy. But he can't explain that to her, so he just agrees with her automatically and wanders out in a daze.
Man.
Baoyu, wandering through his family's massive compound. But it's not the bustling, lively estate you might expect.
No, not.
If you picture yourself walking with him, the atmosphere is actually quite eerie.
Yeah, the text is very deliberate in setting that mood right out of the gate. It specifically notes the desolate, empty courtyards he's passing through.
Just totally empty spaces.
Exactly. He walks by these grand, cavernous spaces with the doors and windows shut tight against the world. It establishes this underlying sense of isolation, a hint of architectural decay.
Right, like something is fundamentally wrong.
But then he turns a corner and the silence just breaks. He hears voices and finds this really lively group of girls.
Tanshin, Li Wen, Li Qi, and Xing Xuan, right?
Yeah, they're all gathered at the Lotus Pavilion. It's a vivid, sudden burst of life that perfectly sets up the central tension we're going to explore today.
Which is that there's this profound hidden rot lurking just beneath this serene surface.
Exactly. And Baoyu, naturally, decides to ruin that serenity immediately.
Oh, of course he does. He sneaks up behind these ornamental fake mountains, eavesdrops on them, chatting about fishing, and then he just picks up a small brick and lobs it right into the water.
Just completely unprovoked.
Kerplunk, he totally ruins Tanshin's catch.
It is the ultimate annoying older brother move.
Seriously.
But pay attention to how the girls react. I mean, they aren't genuinely furious. They just laugh it off and invite him to join them.
Yeah, they decide to turn this casual fishing session into a fortune-telling game.
The premise is super simple. Whoever catches a fish has good luck for the year. Whoever doesn't is destined for bad luck.
Which means everything that happens next is incredibly loaded. The text gets hyper-specific about exactly how everyone fishes.
Right, because if you're reading closely, you realize you aren't just watching a fishing game. You're watching a personality test unfold through action.
A personality test that reveals how much control these characters actually have over their own lives.
Yeah, look at Tanshin. She tosses her line in, and within seconds, her float ducks under. She pulls up this incredibly lively, jumping willow leaf fish.
No struggle at all.
Exactly. The action is effortless, which reflects her natural competence and vitality. She commands her environment.
Then you have Li Wen, who is on the complete opposite end of the spectrum. She gets a bite, pulls it up, and finds an empty hook.
Yeah, she tries again, waits a long time, gets another bite, and still pulls up an empty hook.
Because her hook is physically bent inward, right?
Right. The reason her hook is empty is a brilliant metaphor. She literally cannot catch anything until she relies on someone else.
She has to have her tools fixed by a maid.
Exactly. The maid straightens the hook, adds fresh bait, and meticulously places a little reed float on top.
And even after all that borrowed effort, she only catches a tiny 2-inch crucian carp.
It's the illusion of self-sufficiency. I mean, she thinks she's playing the game, but the servants are doing all the actual work to keep her afloat.
Meanwhile, the other two girls, Li Qi and Xuyan, just drop their lines in and pull up fish immediately. No drama whatsoever.
None. And then we get to Baoyu.
Oh, Baoyu. He reminds me of that person we all know who buys all the expensive professional-grade gear for a brand new hobby, talks a huge game, and immediately breaks everything.
Yes, because he announces to the whole pavilion that he is going to emulate Jiang Taigong.
Which, for those of you who might not know, Jiang Taigong is this legendary mythological angler.
Right, a massive figure in mythology.
The story goes that he was so in tune with the universe, so spiritually aligned, that he supposedly fished with a straight needle instead of a hook.
Just hovering it right above the water.
Exactly. He just wait for the fish to volunteer themselves out of pure respect for his virtue.
And Baoyu is claiming this posture of supreme mystical patience. He views himself as above the petty struggles of the mortal world.
But what happens in reality? He sits down, and his shadow immediately scares all the fish away.
Yeah, he sits there staring at a motionless line, and his supposed mystical patience evaporates in seconds.
He sees a fish blowing bubbles near the edge, completely loses his cool, waves his rod around, and scares that one away too.
He starts literally complaining out loud to the water.
Yeah, he says, I'm the most impatient person and you're the slowest. How is this going to work? Come on, do me a favor.
It's objectively hilarious. But then he actually gets a bite.
The lion twitches.
And Baoyu is so overwhelmed with desperation to secure his good fortune that he abandons all technique and just heaves the rod upward with all his might.
And he smashes it right into a rock.
Yeah.
The rod snaps cleanly into two pieces. The line breaks. The hook is gone. It is a catastrophic failure.
And that snapping rod is the exact moment the garden's protective bubble bursts.
The girls start laughing at how clumsy he is, but that laughter is instantly and permanently cut short.
Because right at that moment, a maid named Yu comes sprinting up to the pavilion in an absolute panic.
And just like that, the sunny afternoon is dead.
It's over. The illusion of control they were all playing at evaporates. Baoyu is dragged instantly back into the harsh, deeply paranoid reality of the adult world.
Yu informs Baoyu that grandmother Jia, who is the ultimate matriarch of the family, has woken up and is demanding his presence immediately.
Yu mentions that something has broken open or been exposed, and that Shifeng, another major power player and manager of the family, is also being summoned for questioning.
Imagine you are Baoyu walking to the matriarch's room. You're terrified.
You're probably trying to calm yourself down, assuming that some servant girl somewhere has caught a sickness or gotten into a minor scrape.
Right. You are entirely unprepared for what is actually waiting behind those closed doors, because when he gets there, he doesn't find a minor household dispute.
No, he walks into a tense, formal interrogation.
Grandmother Jia looks at him and asks him to recall a very specific, highly traumatic event.
Yeah, from 2 years prior. Baoyu and Shifeng both suffered from a sudden, mysterious, and incredibly severe illness.
Grandmother Jia demands to know exactly what his symptoms were, down to the smallest detail.
The symptoms he describes are horrifying. Baoyu says he was just standing there one day, and suddenly it felt like someone struck him over the head with a heavy club from behind.
His vision just went pitch black.
Right. Then the hallucinations started. He saw a room full of green-faced, fanged demons wielding knives and clubs.
But the most specific detail is the physical sensation. He says he collapsed on his bed and felt like tight, heavy iron brain hoops had been clamped around his skull.
Iron brain hoops. It's a very visceral, mechanical description of agonizing pain.
And Shifeng's testimony is just as disturbing, right? It focuses heavily on a total loss of bodily autonomy.
She describes a demonic exhaustion, but says her body was being driven by an external force that compelled her to want to murder anyone she saw.
She literally says, whatever I saw, I wanted to kill.
Exactly.
Now, if you're listening to this today, your mind immediately goes to a medical crisis, right?
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, if we look at this through a modern lens, couldn't Baoyu's blow to the head, the dark vision, the feeling of brain hoops, and even the hallucinations just be symptoms of a severe fever, maybe a massive migraine?
Or even a localized seizure.
Exactly. And Shifeng's sudden homicidal urges sound exactly like a severe psychological break. How does the text blur the line between a medical crisis and black magic?
Well, the text actively invites that skepticism. It wants you to briefly rationalize it as a strange, simultaneous medical event.
Okay.
But Grandmother Jia completely shuts that interpretation down. She isn't asking these questions out of morbid curiosity, and she certainly isn't filling out a medical chart.
She is conducting a forensic investigation.
Yes, because the hallucinations aren't hallucinations anymore.
Right. They're physical evidence. Grandmother Jia is matching their verbal testimonies against physical evidence that has just been discovered out in the real world.
So we have this isolated, paranoid family trying to figure out what happened to them 2 years ago, but they don't solve it internally.
The answer actually kicks the doors in from the outside world. Lady Wang, Baoyu's mother, reveals the scandal.
And it is a huge scandal. Baoyu's own godmother has been arrested by the Imperial Bodyguard.
She is sitting in a Ministry of Justice prison facing the death penalty.
We have fully entered a true crime procedural here.
We really have. Lady Wang explains exactly how this godmother was caught, exposing this highly sophisticated, deeply cynical criminal enterprise operating right under the city's nose.
The hustle is unbelievable. There's a man named Pan Sanbao who tries to extort a local pawn shop.
He demands double the price for a property he already sold them. The pawn shop obviously refuses. So Pan Sanbao hires Baoyu's godmother.
He hires her because she has access. The text notes she frequently visits the pawn shop and has cultivated friendships with the women who live in the inner courtyards.
So she uses that trust to covertly enact a curse.
Exactly.
Yeah.
She gives these women a demonic illness. The household descends into absolute chaos.
And once the trap is sprung, she steps back in, plays the savior, and claims she knows how to cure them.
She burns some magic paper money, lifts the curse, and walks away with a massive fee of silver.
It's crazy. Think of it like a modern-day cybersecurity ransomware attack.
That is a perfect analogy.
She gets trusted access to the system, covertly installs a virus that completely crashes the hard drive, waits for you to panic, and then swoops in and extorts you by selling you the decryption key.
It's a manufactured crisis for pure profit. And just like a cyber attack, the most terrifying part is that the vulnerability came from inside the house.
She exploited their trust.
But as the text notes, she gets sloppy. She drops a silk bundle at the pawn shop.
The employees open it up, and instead of normal belongings, they find strange paper figures and 4 balls of very fragrant, highly unusual incense.
The pawn shop employees realize something is incredibly wrong. When she comes back looking for her dropped bundle, they grab her and search her.
And the evidence they find on her person is chilling. She is carrying a box containing 2 naked carved ivory demons and 7 red embroidered needles.
They immediately hand her over to the Imperial bodyguard who raid her home. And the inventory of that raid reads like a horror movie set.
What do they find?
They find clay statues of evil spirits. They find boxes of what they call troublemaking incense.
Troublemaking incense.
Yeah. To understand how this works, we have to look at the mechanisms of these curses. That troublemaking incense likely contained potent hallucinogens designed to be burned covertly in a victim's room.
Oh, wow. Inducing the exact chaotic visions Baoyu and Shifen experienced.
Exactly. But the smoking gun, the piece of evidence that turns this from a random extortion case into an attempted assassination of our main characters, happens in a back room.
They find an altar with a 7-star lamp burning, and underneath that lamp, they find straw effigies.
The 7-star lamp is a crucial detail here. In Taoist rituals, it's a powerful tool often used to either prolong life or command spirits.
Under the glow of the summoning lamp, the authorities find customized straw dolls.
This is the core of sympathetic magic. It's the belief that you can bind a victim's soul to an effigy, so that whatever physical trauma you inflict on the doll manifests as real, agonizing pain in the human target.
And the authorities report that some dolls had nails driven into their chests, some had locks chained around their necks.
And some were wearing miniature iron head hoops.
The exact thing Baoyu said he felt during his illness.
Yes. The iron brain hoops wasn't a migraine symptom. It was a literal, physical object clamped onto a voodoo doll under a lamp in a hit woman's house.
It completely validates their trauma while simultaneously escalating the danger. Because a hit woman doesn't just randomly target wealthy teenagers.
She has to be hired.
Which means someone inside the family paid to have Baoyu and Shifeng tortured and potentially killed.
This forces the family to ask the most dangerous question: who hates them enough to do this?
And Shifeng, piecing it all together, suddenly remembers a crucial detail from 2 years ago, right after they miraculously recovered.
She remembers Baoyu's godmother snooping around the room of Aunt Zhao.
Aunt Zhao, who is the concubine of Baoyu's father.
She is. Zhifeng remembers the godmother demanding silver from Aunt Zhao. And more importantly, Zhifeng remembers how the godmother looked at her when she was caught.
She describes the godmother having guilty, shifting, black chicken eyes.
Black chicken eyes. What a vivid, visceral description of a shifty, guilty conscience staring back at you.
It's so creepy. Grandmother Jia listens to this memory and immediately deduces the motive, right?
It's pure, venomous jealousy over inheritance and household control. Aunt Zhao hates that Baoyu is the favored son over her own son, Huan.
And she hates Shifeng because Shifeng manages the household with an iron fist, keeping Aunt Zhao completely marginalized.
Exactly. Aunt Zhao wanted them out of the way, so she hired a professional to curse them.
So if you're tracking the evidence, the case is closed. We have the motive. We have the eyewitness memory of the payoff.
We have the physical evidence of the straw dolls with iron hoops.
The authorities literally raided the house and found account books logging the godmother's curses and how much she was paid. They have the receipts.
They absolutely do.
So you'd expect a massive confrontation. Aunt Zhao gets dragged out, punished, banished, something to achieve justice.
You would expect that.
Yeah.
But this is where the text delivers its sharpest, most cynical social commentary. Lady Wang and Grandmother Jia discuss the situation, and they decide to do absolutely nothing.
Wait, I have to stop you there. They literally have the paper trail for an assassination attempt on the heirs of their own family, and they just sweep it under the rug.
They do. Lady Wang explicitly says that because the godmother is already facing the death penalty for the pawnshop crime, They can't bring her in to testify without drawing attention to themselves.
That's wild.
The deeper reason Lady Wang gives is that the matter is too big, and if it gets noisy, it won't look elegant outside.
It won't look elegant. That sounds like they're just worried about bad PR at a dinner party.
It sounds like that, but we really have to understand the historical reality of what a witchcraft scandal meant for an aristocratic family.
Okay, what did it mean?
In this era, practicing black magic, known as goo poison or sorcery, wasn't just a misdemeanor, it was a capital offense.
Oh, wow.
It was often viewed by the emperor as a form of treason against the imperial order, especially if it was happening inside a noble house connected to the court.
So if the authorities found out that their family compound was a hotbed for assassination by witchcraft,
The emperor could seize their assets, strip their titles, or even execute the entire bloodline to root out the corruption.
so it isn't just about maintaining a facade of elegance, it's about literal survival. They cannot afford the scrutiny.
Survival over justice, absolutely. Grandmother Jia agrees. She essentially says the gods saw what happened, the hit woman is going to be executed by the state anyway, and Anzal's karma will eventually catch up to her.
It's better to let the state handle the messy business of execution and keep their own hands clean to protect the larger family structure. That is deeply unsettling. The scene shifts abruptly. So we start with what appears to be just a casual evening chat between a husband and wife, Lady Wang, and Jia Zhang.
Just a quiet conversation in their private quarters.
Right, but this chat is about to permanently decide a young man's destiny.
Yeah. So the scene opens with Lady Wang sharing some highly distressing news about Yingchen.
Oh yeah, this part is rough.
It is. Yingchen has recently been married off to a man named Sun. Lady Wang reports that Yingchen is basically drowning in tears. She is completely miserable.
Because her new husband is awful.
Exactly. He's incredibly cruel, overbearing, and actively mistreating her.
Okay, let's unpack this, because reading this exchange, the patriarch's reaction is just chilling.
Yeah. Jia Zhang's response is, well, it's something.
He basically shrugs it off. He says the older brother arranged this marriage. He knew it wasn't a great match, but, his hands are tied.
He explicitly says he just hopes she gets used to the mistreatment.
Gets used to it. And then the conversation pivots entirely. Lady Wang actually starts laughing.
Which is such a jarring shift.
Totally. She shifts the topic to their son, Baoyu, and starts chuckling about some childish nonsense he was talking about earlier in the garden.
He goes from being completely passive and resigned about a young woman's active suffering to being deeply, fundamentally alarmed about his son's, mildly immature behavior.
I look at Jia Zhang in this moment, and I don't just see a strict dad. I see a terrified CEO whose company is on the brink.
That's a great way to put it.
Right. He casually dismisses actual abuse in a marriage, but goes into absolute panic mode because his son is playing in a garden.
It feels completely backward.
It does, but honestly, it reminds me of a very modern phenomenon. You see parents today who might completely ignore a child's obvious emotional distress or anxiety, like their mental well-being just isn't on the radar.
Right, absolutely.
But the second that kid gets, a B- in AP chemistry, the parents are obsessively micromanaging their college applications and going to absolute war.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, we really have to understand the brutal societal and economic stakes that are driving Jia Zhang's psychology here.
Right, the historical context.
Yeah. In Qing Dynasty society, the family operates under a patriarchal marriage system.
Meaning the woman moves to the husband's family?
Exactly. When a daughter, like Yingchen, marries, she physically and legally leaves her birth family to join her husband's household.
So she's gone.
Her economic value, her future, her allegiance, it's all entirely transferred to the Sun family. So Jia Zhang views her suffering as a tragedy. Perhaps. But structurally, she's a lost cause.
Wow, that is harsh.
It is, but he cannot intervene without causing a massive social rift, and frankly, there is no financial return for doing so.
But a son, on the other hand, is the entire family's future survival. Jia Zhang explicitly calls a useless son a massive liability.
Right. He is operating on sheer economic pragmatism. The Jia family estate requires a capable male heir to maintain their wealth, their social standing, their political connections.
Low pressure, right?
Right. If the son fails, the entire multi-generational family falls into ruin. So Jia Zhang decides, right then and there, that Baoyu needs severe discipline.
And he doesn't mess around. He actively rejects the idea of hiring a gentle tutor.
Yeah, his reasoning is that the mischievous, bold city kids in their family school would just manipulate a gentle teacher.
They'd walk all over him, completely wasting everyone's time.
Exactly. So he chooses to send Baoyu to the family school under the rule of Daru.
And Daru is not a gentle guy.
Not at all. He's an older, famously strict family tutor
Yeah.
who basically relies on fear to keep the students in line.
So this panic over economic survival inevitably transforms into a desperate need for control. And this casual conversation triggers a total lockdown of Baoyu's life.
Almost immediately.
Literally the very next morning, Jia Zhang summons his son for a face-to-face confrontation, and the critique is just brutal and relentless.
He attacks Baoyu's calligraphy, for one.
Which was a big deal, right?
Huge. It was a vital marker of character and capability at the time. Then he accuses him of faking illnesses to avoid reading.
Typical kid stuff, but treated like a crime.
Yeah. But his biggest grievance is that Baoyu spends his time playing with his sisters and the maids in the garden instead of focusing on what he calls proper business.
And the confrontation culminates in an absolute ban. Jia Zhang looks at his son and explicitly outlaws his art.
No more poetry.
None. He forbids Baoyu from writing poetry or crafting couplets. From this day forward, Baoyu is mandated to study one thing and one thing only.
The eight-legged essay.
Right, the Baoyu. Now, I have to ask about this because I think a lot of people listening might share my confusion here.
Sure.
Classical Chinese poetry is supposed to be this highly respected, deeply revered art form, right? It's the hallmark of a refined intellectual.
Yes, generally speaking.
So why is the father acting like writing poetry is a shameful, destructive habit? I mean, it feels like telling a brilliant, naturally gifted, aspiring musician that they have to completely smash their guitar to pieces and go study corporate accounting.
Smashing the guitar is actually the perfect analogy.
Really?
Yeah. To understand Jia Zhang's mandate, we have to look at how this Baoyu, the eight-legged essay, actually functions. It was the highly rigid, heavily stylized essay format required to pass the Imperial Civil Service examinations.
Okay.
And it restricts thought by design.
Wow.
The 8 legs refer to specific, mandatory sections of the essay, like the breaking open, the amplification, and so on. A student was required to take a quote from Confucius or Mencius and argue it using perfectly balanced parallel sentence structure.
So it's very structural.
Highly. Furthermore, you were forbidden from using any original thought.
Wait, no original thought at all?
None.
Yeah.
And you couldn't reference any history after the classical period. You had to literally adopt the voice of the ancient sages.
So it's not a test of creativity or intellect. It's a test of absolute conformity.
Exactly.
You are demonstrating that you can suppress your own voice to flawlessly execute the state's required format.
It is the ultimate vocational tool. The civil service exam was the singular path to political power, government positions, and economic security for the family estate.
The only way up.
Right. Poetry, while beautiful and a sign of a refined soul, is utterly useless for passing this specific exam.
So to Jia Zhang, it's just a waste of time.
Worse than that, he views Baoyu's poetry not as art, but as a dangerous distraction. It is a luxury the family cannot afford if Baoyu is to become the pillar that holds the roof up.
Ran.
And so Jia Zhang delivers a chilling ultimatum. Show progress in this specific rigid essay format in 1 year or be entirely disowned.
Just brutal.
He literally tells his own son, I won't want a son like you.
And when that kind of total identity erasure is dropped on a young person, the shockwaves hit the entire ecosystem around them. Baoyu is left completely speechless. The text notes he literally has no words to respond. He retreats to his courtyard, which is his traditional safe haven.
And the fallout there is immediate.
Yeah. The reactions of the people who care for him reveal this incredibly complex web of support and pressure that he lives within.
His headmaid, Zirin, embodies this complexity perfectly.
She does.
She is visibly anxious because Baoyu is deeply upset. But the text gives us a window into her internal monologue, and she is secretly glad he's being forced to study.
Which seems like a betrayal, but it's not really.
No, because Zirin understands the harsh structural reality of their world, even if Baoyu wants to remain sheltered from it. She knows his poetic life in the garden is unsustainable.
She loves him, so she knows he needs to conform to survive.
Right.
But then his grandmother, Jiamu, steps into the fray. And as the ultimate matriarch of the family, she wields immense power.
She definitely does.
And she immediately offers Baoyu a safety net. She tells him to go to school and not anger his father, but she adds this crucial caveat. She says, if the tutor makes it too hard for you, I'm here.
She is leveraging her generational authority to act as a buffer against Jia Zheng's pragmatism.
Exactly.
What's fascinating here is the stark architectural and psychological contrast in the worlds Baoyu is navigating.
Oh, the difference is huge.
He is being forcibly extracted from one very specific sphere and shoved into another. His life in the Grandview Garden, surrounded by his grandmother, his sisters, his maids.
It's very insulated.
Yes. It's a highly protective, emotional, creative, and distinctly feminine sphere. It is a world governed by aesthetic appreciation, poetry, and emotional nuance.
And the family school represents the exact opposite.
Precisely. The school is the rigid, institutional, unfeeling, and explicitly masculine sphere. It is the domain of his father, the strict tutor, and the broader demands of the imperial state.
And you really feel the heavy, oppressive anxiety of that transition the night before his first day. I mean, the maids, Jira and Sheo, literally take turns staying awake all night.
Just to make sure he wakes up on time.
Yeah. They organize shifts just to ensure Baoyu doesn't oversleep and trigger another explosive reaction from his father. It grounds this massive historical epic in such a relatable human dread.
Everyone's walking on eggshells.
The entire household is holding its breath, anticipating the collision of these two worlds, and the handover the next morning cements this reality.
Yeah, Jia Zheng personally escorts his son to the school.
And formally hands him over to the tutor, Jia Dairu.
And the conversation between the father and the teacher is just a masterclass in philosophical alignment. Jia Zheng actively begs the tutor to be unyielding.
Don't go easy on him.
Right. He dismisses Baoyu's artistic inclinations once again, but this time he uses an incredibly specific, highly poetic phrase to mock him.
Oh, this part is so ironic.
It is. He categorizes all of Baoyu's poetic interests as mere wind, clouds, moon, and dew.
He uses the very language of poetry to destroy the value of poetry.
Exactly. He is isolating everything he despises about his son's nature. Wind, clouds, moon, and dew are ethereal. They are fleeting.
They're beautiful, but
They are deeply emotional. And most importantly, to Jia Zheng, they are completely economically unproductive.
right.
They cannot be weaponized in an 8-legged essay to secure a government post. And the tutor, Dairu, validates this entirely.
Of course he does.
He agrees that such literary pursuits are fine, but only after one has secured wealth and a stable career.
It is the 18th century equivalent of get a real job first, then you can play your guitar in the garage on the weekends.
That's exactly what it is.
And the transition from this philosophical handover to the cold, physical reality of the classroom is just incredibly jarring for Baoyu.
Baoyu is seated at his new desk, and Daru immediately lays out the mechanical, grueling daily schedule.
It sounds miserable.
It really does. There is a morning review of classical texts, followed by hours of writing characters after meals, and finally, afternoon recitations and explanations of the material.
Just constant rote learning.
Yeah. The schedule is designed to break down individuality and enforce repetition. There is absolutely no room for wind, clouds, moon, or dew in this room.
The atmosphere is just suffocating.
Yeah.
And Baoyu's sense of isolation is profound. He looks around the room and realizes the social fabric he once knew is completely gone.
All his allies are missing.
Yeah, his old acquaintances, like a boy named Jin Rong, are missing. The new students filling the desks appear, to Baoyu's eyes anyway, entirely vulgar.
He feels totally out of place.
But the heaviest blow is the absence of his closest confidant, Qin Zong. The text specifically notes his internal despair, emphasizing that he feels he has absolutely no one to share a knowing word with.
The loss of Qin Zong signifies the complete severing of his emotional lifeline. He hasn't just lost his physical freedom to roam the garden, he has been stripped of his community.
He's entirely alone.
He is surrounded by people, yet entirely alienated. The physical space of that classroom acts as a proxy for the crushing weight of adulthood and societal conformity.
It's finally caught up to him.
Yes, locking him in place, demanding he become a cog in the family's economic machine.
And then, while Baoyu is sitting there trying to process this miserable silence, the tutor drops a bombshell.
This part is so cruel.
Here's where it gets really interesting, because the psychological manipulation at play is brilliant and cruel. Daru looks at Baoyu and says, "Since it's your first day, you can go home early today."
It sounds like a momentary reprieve, a sliver of mercy.
Right. But it is a complete fake out, because in the very next breath, Daru says, "But tomorrow I'm going to make you explain a chapter of the text to me just to see exactly what your academic level is."
Boom.
Baoyu's heart pounding in absolute fear.
It is a brilliant cliffhanger of academic terror. Daru gives him the illusion of freedom for the afternoon. only to ensure that Baoyu will spend every single second of that freedom agonizing over the impending test. And the stakes for Baoyu are unimaginably high. He knows that his father's ultimatum, that one-year deadline to master the Brakuen or be permanently disowned, hinges entirely on what this terrifying tutor reports back.
So it's not just a bad grade on the line.
No. His pounding heart is not simply a reaction to a pop quiz. He is having a visceral reaction to a threat against his very survival, his identity, and his permanent place within his own family.